Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I am Bonnie Barclay. I'm a therapist in Knoxville, Tennessee, and owner of Creekside Counseling and Wellness. So today is my Trauma Talk in 10, and today we're going to be talking about parenting as a survivor of developmental or childhood trauma. So let's just start with the big truth of today, which is that parenting is not easy. And sometimes, if we're honest, if I'm honest, it's not fun. We can love our children and not like their behaviors. And I really don't think we talk about this enough. There can be a lot of shame around this. Add trauma, and there are even more layers to parenting. Even if you've had therapy to address your trauma, it's not uncommon. Actually, it is more common for triggers to come up. The major life transition of parenting requires revisiting our own stories, our own childhood, whether we have these big T or little t traumas or other just significant or distressing issues. This is so hard. Many of us, if we're honest again, we want to put this behind us. And maybe even we thought we did if we have already unpacked this in therapy. So I want to go over some key areas today to think about when you think about trauma and parenting as a survivor. So number one is when the past becomes present through remembering. So sometimes parents get caught off guard when their child's cries or behaviors trigger a recall or remembering of their own unmet needs for comfort, safety, attunement throughout their childhood. The body remembers early stress, a time when basic needs were ignored or outrightly denied. And such remembering may make it difficult for parents to remain present to their children. They're caught between grief related to their own childhood and the current demand to be responsive and responsible in that moment with their child. And this dilemma can cause parents to suffer emotionally, also triggering acute signs of trauma arousal or that nervous system activation. Although recall of developmental trauma is more typical during initial stages of parenting, it is possible for parents to encounter this at later stages as well. A child's developmental their developmental milestones and experiences in community, relationship with peers, these are all opportunities for parental stress. Children require their caregivers to give of themselves intellectually, physically, and emotionally. And so parent survivors who may be unjustly deficient in one of these aspects may push beyond their means, activating again that nervous system response, that fight, flight, or freeze. So number two, I want to just review some of the possible signs of traumatic remembering. And again, this list is not exhaustive. It's just to give you some insight into some of those symptoms. And that way you can start to take notice of them. So without notice, survivors may have to process physiological reactions that often do not match their current circumstances. Some of these might include different emotions like anxiety, despair, shame, irritability, rage, or panic. And certain body sensations, including an increased heart rate, tightness in the chest, sense of restlessness, or muscular tension. Let me take a drink of water. Number 3, the importance of knowing your story. And I know I talk about this a lot because I think it's so important. While we don't have a choice over what triggers us, we do have a choice over how we deal with our triggers, even if it's incredibly difficult. And I do want to acknowledge that. Having a sense of your trauma story can help you become more aware of the themes, patterns, feelings, and body sensations that are part of your story. That body keeps the score, really connecting with that. And with a lot of trauma survivors, there is a disconnect. Awareness can help you have a heads up around possible triggers, situations of remembering. So, for example, I want to give you 2. If you were bullied in school, then a key trigger point might be when your child starts school. If you were abused by someone outside of the family, sleepovers may be triggering. Number 4, an opportunity to honor, heal, and regulate. So let's tackle honor first. As Bessel van der Kolk writes, I needed to befriend my body, to honor its physical experience. This was the first step in releasing the tyranny of the past. So what does this mean? Many of us disconnect from our bodies. This is even more common with trauma survivors. This whole idea of honoring and befriending is about having a greater awareness of body-based feelings and responses. And while people feel this will lead to overwhelm and being out of control, the opposite is actually true. It leads to more control over our lives. This doesn't mean that initially starting with that process may be uncomfortable, distressing, or overwhelming. And if it is too much, seek help. It is available, and there are strategies through the therapy process to make that more manageable. Befriending is learning to tune in and turn towards our nervous system responses with curiosity and compassion rather than turning away or avoiding. So the second part, heal. It is important to give yourself the time and space to heal. This can include the help of a professional, as I mentioned, especially if you're struggling. Therapy can help you increase your awareness of your emotional and physical needs in parenting. Yes, you as a parent also have needs in parenting. By learning to identify them, you can respond more effectively and then parent more effectively. Healing is a process, and just as the brain has the capacity to rewire the autonomic nervous system, can also establish new patterns, moving out of protection mode into connection. Next is regulate. Being able to effectively regulate your mind and body when in a place of remembering is important, a skill that can be learned. In the heat of parenting, it can be difficult to come up with ideas, words to say, things to do. It's best to have a plan so you know what to do when feeling triggered or dysregulated. Give yourself permission to take some time when you do not know what to do or you recognize that you're triggered and you need a break. A lot of parents I work with feel the pressure to act in the moment, and sometimes it's best for everyone to take a pause. Best for us, and a chance actually to model for our children this important skill of being able to pause, being able to recognize when we need a moment where we're safeguarding really the relationship and not doing something in a dysregulated state that we normally wouldn't do and could even be hurtful. In all three of these, cultivating community is important. We're wired for connection, and with the right tribe, we can heal and parent more effectively with the support of others. I know that my mom's group was so important to me for support and just to be present with me during this entire process. Number 5, know your child's journey, their tasks for different developmental milestones. Many of us get stressed during the toddler years, but for me, this was actually easier than the baby years. Those first 3 to 6 months were really, really hard for me. But with the toddler years, my knowledge as a therapist of the developmental task of separation, individuation, that whole no business, I saw that as their job at the time, so it was actually easier for me. For many survivors, this can be triggering. Developmentally, kids repeat this task of separation and individuation in adolescence, so this can be another really high stress time. Knowing the milestones and tasks can help parents take a step back, observing behavior from a more objective standpoint, from a place of curiosity and need, rather than one of manipulation or a negative motive. Number 6, getting more comfortable with play and playful moments. Play may be a missing experience for trauma survivors. When an environment is filled with cues of danger, the nervous system remains on guard, focused on protection, making play a non-essential and maybe even an unsafe choice. So many survivors had limited opportunities to play. This is an essential part of healing, not only for yourself, but also as a parent to form connection and a sense of playfulness with your child. This can be as simple as a moment of laughter, learning structured play, or spontaneous moments of play and playfulness. So to wrap up today, the hard truth is that parenting can be both difficult and rewarding. The good news is that healing is possible. So if you're looking for some parenting books to kind of help you, there's so many out there, and a lot of them are how-tos. And the books that I particularly like, there are some love and logic books that I really like, that if you really are someone who needs structure and words, that can help. But really anything by Dan Siegel are excellent. 2 of my favorites are The Power of Showing Up and The Whole Brain Child. But really, again, he has so many good books that kind of help you blend that parenting and understanding of brain science. So I hope this was helpful today. Next week, I am actually not going to do a Trauma Talk in 10. I am going on a trip this weekend with my husband for our anniversary, and I am going to practice some good self-care, which is what I preach, and not work during our time together so I can be present. And so I'll be back in 2 weeks with another Trauma Talk in 10. Talk to you soon. Bye.